afternoon, everybody. I'm here, obviously an invitation, but I am a member here. I'm a member of a couple different genealogy and historical societies, and I love it. I get intrigued by it. Last year at this time, it was actually June, I had a major back surgery, so I was out of work for 5-6 months in recovery, and during that time, my wife had bought me Ancestry, and I never used it, and it was the perfect time, because if a few of you just read the newspaper article, I didn't know my family. I was orphaned. I was in foster care, so I never knew any of either side, mother side, or either family. So through Ancestry, I got intrigued because the man that I know, my father, I met when I was 27, was not a good man, and he said some very vile, very bad things about my mother. And I came to find out, I was doing some searching, and I said, I never knew if he was married to her. There was no clear record or indication either way. So I started digging, and this is where I really got hooked on it, on Ancestry. I was going through the Baltimore archives in Baltimore, Maryland, and I just started looking for records. I knew the time I was born, so I looked the years before, the years after, and I found, the Holy Grail. I found that she was indeed, they were married. And then once it lit my fire, I was like, okay, if I can find this, there's so much more I can find out. And I kept searching, and in the process of being the time I had, I couldn't have done this if I was working full time. There's no way in God's earth I could have done it. So I was blessed to have this time, and the things I found out were just mind blowing. I went to Whitmire, South Carolina, which is indeed a heritage to my family. George Frederick came over from Germany and started off in a ship called Sally to Philadelphia. And I got a map that shows the trail they went to South Carolina. And it's mind-blowing, because when I started really digging, I found more than I could ever imagine. I'm linked, my DNA matches, everything is a match, so I know that that's my ancestry. And I went really hog wild doing that. And then, of course, when I found my mother, the fact that she was married, I turned and reversed it a little bit and said, okay, let me dig up, my mother's side. I got all this, I can go back through it. And I didn't have much. I had a birth certificate that showed me a name, and I knew when she was born. So I started digging through records, and that's when Sherelle was in the kitchen, and I was talking. I met this guy. He was a genealogist for 30 years in Baltimore, in Towson, Maryland. And Greg Burton is his name. Really good guy, and he was instrumental. He actually is part editor on my Ancestry. I invited him in, so he's really helped me put this together. Going from knowing my father and mother, and that was it. And I've got the numbers are staggering. It's climbing, and it's just the Whitmires are clear across the country. They moved. It's crazy, but they were the frontiersmen of America. When you go back in history, there's books on it. I've gone to South Carolina. I spent time at university there. The War Library in Whitmire, South Carolina. This guy was in there. I know I'm going back and forth. This guy was in there, the guy who ran a library, and I said, do you have anything tucked away? And this guy did. He went and he said, come here. And he took me into the back room, and in the filing cabinet, he had 2 files that big. It was all about my family. It was not published. It was just, if I didn't make the trip, I never would have seen this stuff. I got copies of it all. There's one case where the Whitmire side, they do reunions. They've been doing it for 118 years, ever since the Civil War. And this thing is crazy. It's in a town called Whitehorse, South Carolina. And this family's been doing this, and they continue. When COVID stopped, they stopped. And I'm hoping it starts back up. I've been reaching out to the senior father, the man, his name was James Martin Whitmire. He's passed, so his sons have taken over the farm, but I haven't seen any indication that they're going to continue it. I would love to go. That would just be mind-blowing. And through it all, visiting Whitmire, South Carolina, I found this guy, his name is Chris Prince. He worked at the library. I showed up on a Saturday morning thinking, this is a little town. I'm talking, you think English is small, this is small. You know, it's a one-horse town. I went in there, I went to the post office, and the woman just smiled. I'm looking at her going, hey, how are you? Good morning. And I said, I'm looking for any information about Whitmire. She said, what's your name? I said, Edward Whitmire. She said, really? I said, yeah, I'm not kidding you. And she, hold on a second. I said, okay, she made a phone call, and this guy, Chris Prince, shows up. And this guy is the historical guy for the Whitmires. And we ended up spending a couple days together. He took me to the graveyard. We're in Sumter County National Forest there, which is part of the Whitmire First Baptist Church that graveyard belongs to. And I found all the headstones to all the family. And he's got 7 sons, several daughters, but they, you know, this is a time in early American history where the Civil War was raging. It was father against son, brother against brother, and it was a classic case. So I had a family that was Union and family that was Confederate. And Colonel Moses is one of his sons. Actually, you all heard of Ramsey Camp? It's a big church-going holiness movement here locally. And the Whitmires were one of the largest families in the time. So when they moved to Missouri. It's Franklinton County, Missouri. And they opened this place up, and it still exists today. They had a cemetery, Whitmire Cemetery, but he went out there and established the colony out there. And I could go on. There's so many stories that I can tell you, the things I've learned from things. They can write movies on some of the characters in this family. You know, I like to have old Kevin Costner come and play a role because he'd be awesome for it. You know, because it's just phenomenal. They got a guy named Jack Whitmire who deserted, you know, during the time of the Confederacy, and the Union went after him. And they found there was, I think, 18, and a small boy was with him. And the boy got away. But what they did is these men were set to leave the country. They were hauling, their horses were loaded, they had money, they were getting out of, they were going to Mexico. And the Union Army had nothing to do with it. And instead of doing the right thing, they executed them, hung them all, and stole everything they had. And they were charged, but they took off with the horses and the money to Mexico. So, you know, Jack Whitmire, they got a gravestone out there. It's in Texas now, but it's under a tree where they hung him. So I mean, this is classic stuff, old Western tales that can be told, and it goes on and on. One of the things I want to do with our chapel is help people to do this, because this lit a fire in me. I'm not even done. I want to go back to it, because I can spend months to years doing what I'm doing to put this all together. Several people have started it. I've found people that actually, it was just too late. I've talked to the spouses. When one man's wife, she was instrumental in putting together some of the biggest files for the Whitmire family. And when she died, she gave it all to University of South Carolina. So I have everything online I have access to. And if I go there, I can get it all. But I talked to her husband, and he said, man, I wish you'd called. I said, so do I. You know, I said, well, I wish I had known. But she had everything known about this family. And I mean, it just, you know, I've talked to people in California, I've talked to people in Texas, and these are people that are family, cousins, distant cousins. But we're all linked, because George Frederick, when he came over from Germany, this is the story, and it's written everywhere I've read. He got into a confrontation with his father and hit him with an axe, thought he killed him, and fled, and came to America. And his father survived. But he had 5 other brothers, Michael, Christopher, and several others. They all came here at different times through Philadelphia, and they all branched out. Michael and George were brothers, and Michael was coming to tell George, Dad's all right. Never got the chance. They never crossed paths again. But they were right in town. They were 20 miles away. One was in Newberry, South Carolina. The other one was another, not far from where he was at. Never crossed paths. But Michael, he's the one who has this 118-year reunion that goes on, is from that brother. So these are still distant cousins and family, you know, back through the years. What, through this here, this whole process, not only did it help me have honor and respect for my heritage, but it just lit me up to keep digging. One of the things I found out was one of the grandmothers, Penelope Whitmire, she married into the Hearst family. Does anybody know who they are? The Hearst family was one of the biggest newspaper. This guy was a multi-millionaire in his day. And it's the Hearst Castle, which is this. She actually went there, Sherelle went there, and this place is, you talk about the worth of this place is in trillions. The art and the exit, everything they have there is just, I own none of it. You know, I have no claim to it. So, but it's just cool to know that, you know, I'm like, you know, it's a distant relative that had part of this. And, you know, everywhere I make a turn, I see something else that links back to the family. The books I found, Frontiersman, you know, Whitmire's Frontiersman, this stuff is phenomenal. The old Western books, the old movies you read about, those were days, you know, not that far past. When we think about it, we're a young country. We're 250 years old. So this stuff is not that old. You know, some of us can live to 100. It's insane to think about how, you know, this is not that far back. It's not thousands of years like China and everything else. I mean, we're not that old as a nation. Going back, when I started digging more for my mother, I actually found a tremendous amount about her. Unfortunately, the day I did find out, me and Greg Burton were talking on the phone, and he found her death certificate. And our hearts sank. Because I really did. I hoped that I met her. The one thing I did find out about her, you know, my heart bled for her because, you know, the reason being, she was with my father and I know what he was. And part of what we're doing now in the chapel is to bring people a place, a safe place. I don't care what they're going through, some place they can come to and get help. Because what happened there should never have happened. She was desperate. They found her dead in a hotel room in Baltimore City. And that there just, you know, the one thing I'm doing is buying a gravestone. She was buried next to her grandparents and never marked. And she doesn't deserve that. You know, everybody has the right to a decent burial. I did find through this, I found uncles, I found, I'll tell you about him in a minute. All her sisters. One sister's dead, but she's got 6 sisters. She's got a brother. They're all uncles and aunts to me. I actually went there, a few months ago, to Baltimore, and went through and met everybody. And it was a great reunion. You know, these people never met me, didn't know me from Jack, you know, and some of them kind of distant, you know. There's several that didn't want to meet me. And I'm okay with that. I'm like, you're lost. Because I don't want nothing from you. I just want to know who you are. That's a lot of times when you go back in the past, you're going to have good things, you're going to have bad things. Because people are just so reluctant these days. They don't trust people. And to me, I've met some good people along the way. You know, Gary, he was my aunt, one of my aunts, which was one of my regrets last year when I did find them all. Jackie was still living while she died. And that was my biggest regret, was not going when I wanted to go, because the family wasn't ready. And I was like, how many more of y'all gotta die? And they're all in bad health. They were smokers all their lives. They had COPD, they're all dying. I'm like, hey, we all got what we got right now. You know, live the best you got. And I understand, you know, I'm aging. I didn't think I'd ever live this long, you know, with my military, my background, and everything else. He knows my days. Going back, I want to talk to you about a man. This is my uncle, my father's brother, which I didn't know. He's 6 years older than me, and this is bizarre. But this man here, we've become best of friends. He is a stand-up guy. This guy has been He was a Baltimore City cop for 32 years, retired. You talk about, I've been in Baltimore. I don't know if you have. Baltimore is one of the oldest cities in this country and one of the most dangerous cities in this country. And this man, I've seen our son, he's been a Louisville cop, and I've seen it change him. I've got an uncle who's been through hell. He's seen the worst of humanity, and he's still a stand-up guy. He's good to everybody he meets. Today, even in his 60s, he's out there. He just got back from West Africa. He goes around teaching tactical training to all the U.S. embassies. And this man, just 2 weeks ago, was under enemy fire from ISIS. 200 people were killed, 150 people wounded. These are people he's trained. And he can't, being American, he can't even jump in to fight. Obviously, these are obvious reasons for being a major war. He's back now. He's getting ready. He's gonna have knee surgery Friday, and then he's going back out to near Nigeria. It's called Chad, Africa. Which, meeting him, we went. We spent some time with him, and his wife she's precious. They got one child together, but he never knew his brother, my father, like I know him. And he didn't know him, period. But he arrested him several times, so it tells you kind of an indication of how he is. I don't like to speak too much about my father. I try to honor in some way, find some good out of it. I'm here because of him. That's one good thing I can say. And my life has not been horrific. I mean, I've had a lot of goods, ups and downs. And when I find stuff like this, ancestry is so fascinating to me. It just, I want people to pick up on it, and I want to show people how to do this stuff because it's not hard. I mean, if you have any interest in your family and who you are, where you came from, I mean, I didn't have any of that. I didn't even know my heritage. I knew Whitmire. I said, Whitmire, I'm German. That's in my mind, I'm thinking I'm German. But I never knew true what I was. And this has helped me uncover a whole magnitude of things. It fascinates me to this day. When I read a little bit more, just getting ready today, I got home from work and I opened up the files, I opened the computer up. But I've got hundreds. I told you I only had me and my mother was in here. Now I've got hundreds, a family I didn't know before. So when you go from not being, why you're here to a purpose, it changes everything, and to see, I can be proud of who my family was. My family, I'm not related to, Sheeta Swift. I'm not related to the one out there doing all her singing and crazy stuff. But so I'm a Swift and a Whitmire. So, I found all the lineage to show who's who and where it came from, and the men who went to Baltimore, and the reason why I exist today. Back in those days, one thing I did find, one of the things I'm trying to find right now, is I was in an orphanage from my birth until I was 8 years old. And it's like trying to get this information. I've got to go to the courts, and I've got to ask, I said, this is information about me, and I got to come to you and pay you to release my records. I said, I want to know where I was at. I want to know the orphanage I was at. Because one of the biggest things about me, when I was back in the orphanage, I was in trouble all the time. And I get in fights constantly. The reason being is I would go outside, I can run all day. They make me run on the baseball field. I didn't care as long as I wasn't in there with 400 kids. I couldn't stand it. So that's one big thing. I did run track, I did run, I was in sports, so it did get me to where I was at. I had discipline. One thing I want to share with you that's lasting, in the Whitmire thing here, you can all look at it, but this here was pretty cool. When I went to Whitmire, South Carolina, didn't know what to expect to find. I told you about this guy, Chris Prince, at the post office. He took me to the cemetery, but after he said, I got something I want you to see. And it's not even public. There's no signs to label what this place is. we said, we gotta run by my house. So I said, okay, I don't know this guy, but okay, let's do this. He had to get keys, so we stopped off at his house, and he had these old cars in the barn. I was like, oh, cool. So did that for a minute. We went back to town, downtown, and he pulled up at this, looked like a, all wore out building. This thing was from the 20s and 30s. And he stepped, unlocks the door. We go inside. I said, what is this place? It looked like a bottle and bottling old stuff, vintage stuff. He said, this is the museum. I said, really? And then I found it. Pictures of George Frederick. It showed him at his house. There was a picture of him, black and white photo, saying bye to his two sons, William and Henry, as he's grabbing his gun to go fight in the American Revolution. So, I mean, this is just mind-blowing. When you see the history, it all lines up. This man was, to me, was a hero. He didn't die, but he fought in the war. Back then, one of the things they did is if you fought and served, they gave you land. And he got 960 acres. So that's how the town of Whitmire began. So they built a tavern, post office, and even his grandson, Jesse, ran it long after he passed. So it's kind of cool to see it all come together. I don't know how much time I've got.
You're fine.
Okay. The one thing I want to, not everybody's going to have this story. I think I was on fire for it because not knowing where I came from, not having family. So when I started discovering these little nitbits and pieces and stuff, I think it was really when I found my mother's marriage certificate. That's what really, I said, if I can find this, I can find everything. And it's like you're playing detective when you're doing genealogy, because there's pieces to everything. You gotta look through records. You're looking through what the government does to us all the time.
Census.
Yeah, the census are insane, the information they give off. But now I've got the full package with Ancestry, so I get newspaper, I get everything. Just once I started digging, I said, I need it all. I want to see where this is all going. And it's just, when you start putting it together, that's why so much of what I started was on cards. Little notes, bullet points. I'd write it down and I'd go to the next. Write it down, go to the next. And I would compile my information. And by the time it's all said and done, I know more than my family knows, more than my mother's sisters know. Because they didn't know nothing I know. I found out stuff they don't want me to know. Okay? There's things that they did to my mother that they don't know I know. And I'm like, I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about it. It's done. There was a land deal that was my mother's. Like I said, there's nothing I wanted. But I found out the truth. And that's, to me, that's what's enticed me through it all. They didn't know her husbands. They didn't know names and nothing, and I know it all. I'm like, this is crazy how I've got all, and they got concerned. What do you know about us? I said, everything I need to know. Yeah. But our records are there, they're public. It's not, and while you're living, they're not, but when you die, they're wide open. Everybody can see where you've been, what you've done. It doesn't go into details unless you look at criminal records, sure. But I'm saying with your death, you get the basic information. That's how I was able to link it. Just Social Security numbers through date of births, and just putting it piece by piece together. There was one thing, this guy here, I want to find it. This guy was cool. There's one of my aunts. There's one woman that I found that's part of the maternal side of the family, and she is actually pretty high up in the Archdiocese in Maryland, and she's not responding. And that's what you get when you go digging. Not everybody's gonna be so receptive to let you in. They don't know you. They don't know me from Jack. And the thing is, even with my best intentions, that's how people are. They're not gonna let you through the door. I've had a lot of people, a lot of help through the process. People that from different agencies and such. When I tell them, I just tell them a little bit of the story. This one here, this aunt, this is how I first met them all. her husband, I found an obituary on her husband, Charles Severance, in Baltimore. I actually used Google Earth and came down on top of their home. I saw the two-tone old Ford truck he had in the yard. I was like, this is pretty cool. But that was his truck. When he passed, she was selling it off. But her name is Barbara Swift, and I found it with that obituary. I found the landline. There's nobody with landlines anymore, rarely. You know, we thought about doing it for the chapel, but it didn't happen. So I found that, and I called. I'm just saying, who has a landline? So I just called one day, and I went. I was on my merry way. I was helping a friend work on his truck, and I got in the truck. And of course, I'm in an area where we don't have no signal. And I look at my phone. 2 missed calls from Baltimore, Maryland. I don't know anybody in Baltimore right now. I didn't. At that time, I didn't. So I just said, okay. And I couldn't make the call, so I got close to Leavenworth again to call. And I call, and it's one of my aunts. And they said, is this Ed? I said, yeah, this is your aunt. I said, what? And then I talked to Terry, one of the other sisters. And I said, can I call you when I get home? I said, you're in and out. I'm going down this back road. I said, let me call you as soon as I get to the house. And Terrell was at the house, and we called. And yeah, there was tears. You don't know family, you never had family, you're gonna cry. I don't care who you are. And just to hear their stories, you know, they were blown away. And like I said, some of them were very receptive, others are not. So be prepared when you do genealogy. You know, if you're looking for family like I do, it's not always gonna be a happy ending, you know, and that's okay, you know. At least I got answers. At least I know where I came from, who my family is. Going back, and I'll just hit this real quick. When I was talking about the orphanage, the reason why I want to do that is because one of my hopes and dreams is to open a place for kids. Troubled kids, because they need a place to go. And back in the day, the Roman Catholic Church was in charge of running these orphanages. And we all know a little bit about the Roman Catholic Church and what happened in those days. I want a safe place for kids where they can go, and they're not going to have to be. They can be kids, not have to grow up like I did. You know, I came up rough. You know, and I went through troubles. I had a lot of troubles, but here I am. You know, 60 years old, and we actually going back to this. I got the article up here. You might have seen it was in the local paper, Crawford Democrat. What's the other one? Clarion. And they had the article about the chapel and what we're doing with it. The whole goal for the chapel is Cheryl and I are going to be working together hand in hand. It's not a man standing up in the front ruling and reigning over everybody. It's a husband and wife working together, because our country is, we all know divorce rates are on upscale, and something's not working, so we're going to do something a little different. We're going to work together and invite people from all. We're not denominational. I don't believe in that. I believe in one reason, and that's Him. Our focus is to just be squarely on doing the right things for people and being men and women of our word, you know, living up to it. A lot of people are church hurt. We went through that, and we're not. We want all people to come. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you've been. I'm not forcing nothing down anybody's throat. You know, that's not what I do. This is an opportunity for the community to come together and start healing, maybe. I don't know. But, you know, when we see, I don't know if you all had to hear this. I work in Louisville, and just this past week, there was, I think it was over the weekend, a man with an automatic rifle was out, he shot 5 people. I'm like, you know, why? There's no reason for that. In a country that the freedoms we have, we need to change what we're doing. And that's part of what the chapel is about, and to love people, to let them have a safe place to come to. You know, Crawford, when I lived in Louisiana, I've been up here for about 4 years. But I came from a small town in Louisiana that's a lot like Crawford, okay? Small town. Everybody knows everybody, and I'm getting to know a lot of people, okay? Because nobody knows me. I'm relatively new here. But we want to see this come full circle, and people have an opportunity. One of the things I want to do is teach GED. I want to teach people AutoCAD. I want to teach people how to do this. Give them something to lean on. Give these kids something to do. Everybody's trying to dive in and have a alcoholic class or something else, drug class, when it's too late. Let's do something now. Let's not wait till it's a problem. Let's do something the kids have something to turn to now. You know, that's what they need. They need an out. They need an outreach. They need something else to do. So that's my goal, is to have something good for them to come to. And a family thing. You know, I want to bring family back together. There's a man that didn't have family. I want to bring family back together. You know, do the right thing. That's the goal. I appreciate y'all listening to me. You know, I can't tell you enough. This stuff here is exciting to me. I wish I could quit my job and do this all the time. You know, it's fun. You know, it really is. It's some people it's boring, but I mean, I'm constant. She'd watch me. I'd be sitting there going, next. I'd be writing stuff down. I'm just calling people, and you know, it's fascinating who was willing to help you along the way. Yeah, a lot of people are in the same shoes. You know, some people don't want another family. But hey, you know, I get it. You know, I wouldn't want to care about my father too much, but through that connection, I met my brothers, I met my sisters, I met other family. You know, you gotta take the good with the bad, and just weed them out. Say, okay, I forgive you, but I can't be around you. You know, that's life. I appreciate y'all listening. You know, I got stuff up here you want to see. If you want to see it, I'm here.
Do you want to give the date and time for your open house?
Yeah. Actually, it's a couple weeks, y'all. September 28th, we're having the grand opening at the old Pilot Knob, which is now Chapel of Prayer. It's 80. I got it on here. No, it's blocked. 8486 East Pilot Knob Road. What I've been spending the last, I don't know, since February, nights and weekends working on this thing. I've gutted the back, remodeled it, all that, new plumbing, new electric, new paint, just modernizing it, but not taking away from what this place is. I believe in keeping the history. Actually, whenever I think it was back in the 50s, they put the addition on the backside, and when they did that, they covered the old back of the church with paneling. When I discovered that, I said, yeah, it added more work to me, but I was like, you know what, I want to see that. And I ripped it all out. And this way you see the original church, you see the backside of it. And it's just a little bit of contemporary, but keeping the age of it too. So just come out and just check it out, you know, see what we're about. It's gonna be fun, you know, we're inviting families, we're gonna do cookouts. One thing I'm doing too is I gotta set up electrically, I have to run a generator through storms, you know, if we have. One thing that really ticked me off, I was part of Victory First Baptist Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we had a flood of 2016, and you talk about floods that were up to the eaves everywhere. We were flooded. And our church did not open for the community, and that changed my heart to that church that very day. I said, I don't want to be part of a church that's not going to help the community. And that's one thing we will do. If you got a storm, fire, I don't care. We'll put you up at the chapel. You have food, you have a place to stay, you're safe. That's something I always believed in. You know, churches back in the day were very integral in the communities. They helped the families, they helped the people, and that's what we're about. So we will be doing that again. So, but on the 28th from 3 to 5, come. There's refreshments. She'll be singing. If you've never heard her, you got to hear her. A little bit of Loretta Lynn, you know,
This lady can vouch for that. I'm so glad to have her witness.
She got an album she recorded in Tennessee, in Memphis for 20-something years.
She knows I do that, and I've been to her church years ago. We went to church together, and here we are together tonight. I'm
That's
so
awesome.
happy. So yes.
Yeah, it's you hear what we're about. We got I don't know who you know, but anybody heard of Elmer Lambright and Leslie Williams? They're realtors, they're local realtors around here. They're exceptional people. They were very instrumental in us when we went through the process of buying the chapel. He went the extra mile because a lot of realtors wanted to just sign off a quick claim, meaning that if you had anything on that land, people owned it, anything tied to it, they could sue us. And he said, no, you're not doing this to evidence your own. He fought for us, and he made sure he got the land cleared. So that was a huge blessing to us. And he'll be speaking. This guy, he came from the Amish community, and he's left it. And he talked about it, inspired. I mean, this kid, you know, one thing that really gets me, we talked about this, the Amish live in a country where they have our freedom, but they don't fight for our freedom, and I have a problem with that, okay? If you're willing to live in this country, you need to make the same sacrifices everybody else is doing, not live off the coattails of everybody else. And that's something I believe in. I've got to, you know. But this guy left it. He's been very successful, and Leslie too. They both fought for us, and we're excited about what's going to happen with it in that little community. We want to be small town. We don't want to be no big time USA mega church. I don't want that. We just want to see people come out and just see what we're doing. And if you fit in, come on. You know.
Will the church be open every day?
My plan is to start on Sunday services and Friday Bible study. I would like to get to a point, I've been saying this to everybody I meet, like the old days where the churches stayed open, unlocked. That's what I want to see our chapel do. It's supposed to be a place of solitude and people can come to at any hour. And that's where I want to be.
So you're going to have a pastor?
Us. We're both pastors.
Oh, okay.
One thing I'll tell you this, you know, I'm not a man of titles. I've been many titles, you know, throughout my whole career, through my whole life. I've asked people that are coming here, I'm just Brother Ed or Ed. I don't want the title because what happens with that, people get elevated and they forget where they come from, and I don't want that. I want to stay, I'm no different than anybody else in that room, okay? I need him just as much as everybody else in that room. That's, you know, when we build somebody that far up, they're unreachable. And I just don't, I've always stood that way. I've been going to church and I've seen this happen, and one thing I don't want it to happen to me. So I gotta keep myself humble and keep myself in check. Because I'll sit in pews with them. You know, because come on, we're all human. We all have a chance to make the same mistakes. Yeah, and do the same thing. So I'm not better than the next man next to me. That's how I'm gonna be with that. You know, I've seen too many people elevated, and it's better this way.
So what's the date of the first service?
October 6th, 10 a.m. Yeah. So we're gonna do the grand opening, the 28th. The following weekend we'll open. We're gonna be doing weddings, you know, big dedications, and you know, whatever the people want.
What time of the service?
10 a.m.
And then an opening, is there any time for your opening?
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Y'all leave?
Yeah.
Take care.
See you.
See you. Bye-bye. Yeah, 3 to 5, and then it may last longer because she's gonna be singing, and I get crazy, so you don't know what's gonna happen.
Now we'll all come just to see.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why we're doing this is we want the shock and awe to wear off, and so when we open up for service, everybody's not standing around looking at everything. You know, come look, and then come and get serious about what we're coming to do. You know. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Yeah.